I'm Jenni Carlson.
I'm Barry Trammell. Welcome to the Jenni and Berry Show.
It is Thanksgiving week, and to make time for all your turkey and your fixins, we've got an abbreviated show for you this week, folks. But we've got to talk about OSU's win at Houston, the chance to go to the Big 12 title game, and lots more about the Cowboys. But before we get to that, a word of thanks to these sponsors for supporting the Jenni and Berry Show. The Oklahoma Ford Dealers Association, MidFirst Bank, Next Gen Roofing, Two Fellas Movers, the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum, 988, Oklahoma's mental health lifeline. Drive into your best in Oklahoma Ford dealers today for the best deals on Ford's full lineup of trucks and SUVs. Ford is the best in Oklahoma. And hey, let's face it, a box of pizza and a case of beer just don't work like they used to. Nobody wants to help you move, but we know two fellas that love moving. At Two Fellas Moving Company, we offer free, no strings quotes for your move. With more than 20 years experience, we've pretty much moved it all. Our services don't end up moving either. Need to do some remodeling or spring cleaning? We have you covered with dumpster rentals and junk haul services. Remember, quotes are free and there are no strings attached. If you're moving in Oklahoma, make sure to call the fellas. Visit twofellas.com for your free quote today. Let's talk some Cowboys, Barry. Obviously, a closer than expected first half at Houston, a struggling Cougars team, but the Cowboys do rebound from that really bad loss at UCF. What were you impressed by coming out of that Saturday afternoon game down there in Houston?
Well, here's what I like is it appeared that the Cowboys were suffering from what millions and millions of Americans suffer from, which is a post-Disney letdown. We saw last week OSU clearly had a bedlam hangover. This week, coming off a 45-3 loss at Central Florida, the OSU went to, they experienced in Orlando what most people do, which is thrilled to go and, dead dog tired and worn out when you leave. And they played in Houston like they were still sort of, licking their wounds from Orlando. They got 23-9. Houston threatened to blow open the game.
Yeah.
Cowboys rallied there in the last couple of minutes of the first half, came out like gangbusters in the second half, and really dominated the game. So that was impressive to me. And Mike Gundy called it a culture win, to not give in to the depths of despair when things were rotten. So I like their perseverance to sort of get up off the mat and find the energy to take control of that game.
Yeah, to me, that was the thing that stood out most because, early in the first half, it felt like they were maybe in for another. I mean, I don't know if I was thinking 45-3 type of beatdown, but it felt like that they were on the verge of another ugly loss. And for them to not only rally, but really by halftime, they had that game back, sort of swinging momentum in their control. You felt like if they just kept playing the way in the second half, the way they'd played at the end of the first half, that they'd be in great shape against Houston. And sure enough, they did give up 30 points. We'll talk about the defense here in a second, but only allowing 7 in the second half. I thought that was a huge, huge positive. And then offensively, we see Ollie Gordon get back on track. Alan Bowman has arguably his best day as a Cowboy quarterback, but Brennan Presley, 15 catches, 189 yards. At one point, I think you made the comment to me, he may have 20 catches, and it came close, but what a day for the speedster slot receiver.
Well, when you look at this OSU team, it's sort of remarkable that they're where they're at. I mean, the wide receiver core has been wiped out twice. First in the transfer portal with 3 prime pass catchers leaving. And then this season, injuries have done the same to what was left. And Presley is sort of the last man standing from the people you either have relied on or expected to rely on. And he had a monster day, bunch of big plays. The thing that we think of Brennan Presley is this really quick cat-like slot back, catch it, move in space. But he's a pretty tough guy. I mean, he can catch a ball at the 28-yard line, get hit at the 29, and still get to the 33. And that's the way you keep chains moving. So I thought he made a bunch of tough plays, a bunch of clutch plays, and he really gave Ollie Gordon and Alan Bowman a lot of help in terms of producing yards. Cowboys have been relying on Gordon so much. I thought it really helped that they had somebody over here 15 for 189 in the passing game. Just a huge difference in the game.
Yeah, for sure. And they have gotten some great production out of guys that, like you said, are sort of the guys who are left standing in the wide receiver group, whether you're talking about Leon Johnson having a big game, Rashad Owens having a career game in Bedlam, kind of left a Bedlam legend mark there with his performance. But now Brennan Presley, a guy that, I thought early in the season when they sort of had their full complement of guys, looked to me like they really wanted to try to get the ball to Brennan Presley in more ways than just throwing the ball to him. He was lining up in the backfield, coming across on jet sweeps, his speed, using that speed. But really on Saturday, what we saw was just a pure throw it as the slot guy, get it to him as quick as you can, let him make some moves, and he did. So I think we even had this discussion, Barry, you and I, as we were watching games play out on Saturday. We in our state have got two of the better slot receivers in really all of college football when you think about what Brennan Presley did on Saturday and what Drake Stoops has done for Oklahoma. Those two guys, different players, but both really hard to bring down. They can catch it pretty much wherever you throw it to them, and they're going to make plays for you. So heck of a day for Brennan Presley to have that kind of day, because I think that what he did, especially in the first half, he was big all game. But he not only, like you mentioned, gave Ollie Gordon and Alan Bowman a chance to settle in, but gave the defense a chance to figure some things out, because they'd given up some points in the first half, but only allowed, as I mentioned earlier, 7 in the second half. Kind of allowed them, gave them a chance to calibrate and figure out what adjustments they needed to make. I thought this defense hasn't been perfect, Barry, but under Bryan Nardo in his first year, I think you got to tip your cap to what the Cowboys have done defensively.
Yeah, and if you look at that game, 43-30, 7 of the points is a pick six. So it's 23. So that's 23 points. It's a safety in there, so 21 points. And then the Cowboys gave up a late touchdown that they shouldn't have given up, not excusing it. But for the bulk of that game, they put the kibosh on Houston. And especially there in the second half, Mike Gundy was very pleased with the dominance. He counted 2 first downs. I didn't go back and check him on it, but it sounds right. It was a dominant performance by the Cowboy defense. It's still not a great defense. It's a middle of the road Big 12 defense. I think Cowboys are 7th in both offensive and defensive efficiency this season, which is remarkable considering they're on the verge of making the Big 12 title game. But they were solid, and I think it's a very good development in year one for Bryan Nardo's defense. You have chronicled, others have said it. Cowboys generally sort of have to go through a transition period when they change coordinators, and this one's off to a decent start. So kudos to the OSU defense. I thought they were solid against Houston. Not great, but solid.
Well, and like you say, I mean, if we rewind to Jim Knowles, and obviously, coached great OSU defenses the last couple seasons. He was in Stillwater before he left for Ohio State. But that first year and a little bit was pretty rough. So the fact that Bryan Nardo could have a defense that's playing, again, not great, but well enough to have the Cowboys 1 win away, essentially, from playing for the Big 12 title. I mean, this type of stuff doesn't happen very often in Stillwater, Barry. We have to talk about the Cowboys' path. If Texas wins on Friday night, OSU basically then they just need to win. I mean, there's some other, variables, but really once Texas wins, if they do beat Texas Tech, the path is pretty clear at that point for the Cowboys.
It is. I think we all expect Texas to beat Texas Tech. It won't be easy, but the game is in Austin. So just amazing. When you look back to September, that South Alabama game, lose the next week to Iowa State, which at the time we thought was a Big 12 underling. Iowa State had lost to Ohio. We didn't know the Cyclones would become a contender themselves. Most of us wrote off the season and said this just isn't going to happen in any kind of big-time way for OSU. And going into the season, we didn't think this was going to be a Big 12 title contender. And for the Cowboys to come from where they were to this point on the verge of Arlington is just it's a stunning season. Great coaching job by Gundy and his staff. Great comeback by the Cowboys to find the spirit and the chemistry and the culture. to persevere and get through the bad times. And then even to come back from that 45-3. I mean, it looked like OSU just fell into the crack and got swallowed up by the earth against Central Florida. But they come back, get a road win, now on the verge of making it to Arlington. It's a remarkable story. I don't know what will happen if they make it to Arlington, but I do know this. This is a rousing success story of OSU football, no matter what happens.
Yeah, for sure. And, I mean, obviously, the way it looked, if Texas would have lost to Iowa State on Saturday, it would have created all sorts of issues. OSU would have needed a lot of other stuff to happen. But with Texas beating Iowa State and now having a chance on Friday to beat Texas Tech to secure their spot, the Longhorns, that is, then that would set up a tiebreaker scenario likely for the second spot that OSU would win. And again, we don't know how the rest of these games are going to go, or who would be in that tiebreaker potentially. But yeah, for the Cowboys, after controlling their own destiny coming out of Bedlam, to then lose so badly at UCF and lose control of their own destiny, now to find themselves potentially getting back on the field on Saturday afternoon with a chance to just win and go to Arlington, it would be a huge success. I mean, I think, to me, it's more of a whiplash this year, the turnaround, than the downturn we saw last year. Oklahoma State obviously 7-1 at one point, ranked in the top 10, and then a precipitous fall the rest of the season. Obviously, Spencer Sanders' health did not help with that, and I think that was a shocking turn of events for Cowboy fans. But to me, the bigger shock is this year, to see that South Alabama loss and how really non-competitive the Cowboys were, to now be one win away from playing for a Big 12 championship. I mean, it's remarkable. To me, that turnaround is something that, Cowboy fans will be talking about for a really long time. And obviously, they still have to win. Barry, we saw their competition, BYU coming to Stillwater. We saw BYU this last Saturday in Provo against OU. What's the biggest challenge for the Cowboys in this game?
Well, I think on the Cowboy defense, it stopped the run all of a sudden. BYU's not been a good running team, but they're playing a new quarterback. Keaton Slovis is clearly injured. They've gone to Retzloff, the JUCO quarterback, who's very talented, but he's a little loose with the ball. He had 3 turnovers against Oklahoma. They don't really want to put the game in his hands. They turned to a running game that was very successful. If OSU can stuff that running game, I don't see how BYU's going to score many points. BYU's offense has not been very good this season. It's the worst in the Big 12. Cowboys shouldn't need a ton of points. If OSU's defense plays up to form, OSU's offense will not need a ton of points to win this game. So to me, that's the key. If OSU's defense can play its game, BYU, we sort of know what they are. This should be a game that the Cowboys control and win.
Yeah, and before BYU almost upsets Oklahoma, 31-24 Sooner victory, the 3 games prior, that BYU offense had only scored a combined 26 points. So I think that they were playing, to me, when you get a brand like Oklahoma to come to your stadium, they've obviously had some marquee games over the years as an independent, but you don't get, and now that they're in the Big 12, that'll start to change, but you don't always get those blue bloods who are willing to come to Provo. Well, OU wasn't asked. They were told they were going. So that was a huge game for BYU. I'm not saying that coming to Stillwater won't be a big deal, but obviously they won't have the fan support, the vibe, the home field, all that sort of stuff. I think we'll see BYU come back to earth a little bit. I do like the Cowboys to win, and I like them to win by double digits, Barry. I'm going to say Oklahoma State's victorious 27-14. What do you got for a score prediction on Saturday?
I think I got 32-24 Cowboys. I don't know if BYU found something with its offense, so I'm giving them a little bit more credit than probably they deserve. I do think both teams will be fired up. Both are playing for something. OSU playing to get to Arlington. Brigham Young playing to get to a bowl game. They need one more win to be bowl eligible. But I do think OSU's the better team. I think the crowd will be fired up. OSU's fans have been incredibly loyal this season. They were great in Houston, took over a big chunk of TD-ECU Stadium down in Houston last week. So I think it'll be a jazzed environment. For the Cowboys to make it to Arlington would be a fabulous fabulous achievement. I think fans are ready for that. I think it's going to be a tough environment for BYU. So I think Cowboys will win. I do think BYU's tough enough to make it close.
Yeah, one thing I'll say before we get out of here, I did check that weather forecast. It looks a little cold and rainy, maybe not quite the dumping rain that the Cowboys experienced down at UCF, but it will be interesting to see if the elements play have any effect on what we see on Saturday. But that's all the time we've got this week. Remember, OSU does play BYU at 2:30 p.m. Saturday. Our Sellout Crowd team will be there, plus we'll have all sorts of Cowboy content this week at selloutcrowd.com. And if this happens to be your first time hearing or watching us, be sure to subscribe to our show on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. If you like what you hear, please leave a review. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.